When looking at Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3 results, there is a consistent theme. This is strong creatures with powerful ETBs and abilities. This in addition with Solitude being all but obsolete now, it is time to resurrect Grixis Death Shadow. But the biggest reason this deck is great is because we're going to be playing 4 Dress Down. This is a powerful card against Nadu, Orcish Bowmasters, Grief, and Nethergoyf. And when looking at our deck, we are basically playing no new cards other than Nethergoyfs themselves. So we're going to be taking this old powerhouse into the modern format to see how good Dress Down is in the current format. Just a friendly reminder before the first match starts to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We are on the draw, and starting has a little land light, but we'll keep it. Opponent goes turn 1 swap, evoke out a Grief. They take our Unholy Heat and then scam out their Grief, and then they take our Spell Pierce. We top deck our Ragavan. We will fetch Shock and lead on turn 1 Rag. No attacks from the opponent, so I guess we will go to combat and attack them. They do block. Wow, and no scam effect, so we will redeploy Ragavan, which they do push. We find a Steam Invincible, shock it in. They also find a land. We find a Bloodstained Mire, great draw. We'll fetch Shock and deploy out a threat. We top deck a Dress Down. We will go to combat, back in for 1, and then play out another Death Shadow, which we will have lethal next turn with. My opponent does evoke out a Grief. Yep, and they take our Dress Down, and they play out a Bloodstained Mire into a Necro Dominance, which we will have to counter. Top deck a Bauble. We'll fire it off, looking at their top, seeing a land, and we'll attack in for 2. Fetch land is a great draw. Opponent slams a Shielded, which we will counter. We top deck a Unholy Heat. We will fetch Shock, fire our Gigantha, and then attack in for 8. And they play another Shielded, and luckily we did find an Unholy Heat, so we'll just fire that off now. And opponent scoops it up. Let's get on to sideboarding. For sideboarding, we're going to try something a little different here. We're going to take out 3 Spell Pierces and a Thoughtseize for Molten Collapse, Terminate, Killgon's Command, and Unlicensed Hearse. Game 2, starting hand looks great. Opponent goes turn 1 land Thoughtseize, and they take our Goyf. We top deck a Thoughtseize, great draw. We'll fetch Shock, and Thoughtseize the opponent. Yes, they do have a Bowmasters, so we're going to take that. Opponent plays out a Sorn. We top deck a Dress Down. We will Shock in our land and cast out our Ragavan. Another land from the opponent. We top deck an EI. We will fire off our Dranlock, then attack him with Ragavan, exile a land. We will play out a Steam Vents, tapped Survey a land for the opponent. Top deck a land, we will attack in. We exile on March, which we will not cast. Fire off our EI, put an EI into hand, Bobble bottom, Thoughtseize into exile, fetch at a swamp, fire off Thoughtseize, and we'll take a Soul Spike. One plays out land and then fires off a March on our Ragavan. Groundlock, great draw here. We'll fire off an EI. DRC into hand, Hearse bottom, Shadow exile, play out Shadow, play out DRC, tap land from the opponent, activate Castle Lockthwain, drawing a card. We find a Bolt, which means we do have lethal here. We'll fire off a Dress Down, then a Goyf. Look at that combo. Draw a card, attacking with the team, put them down to 2, and then bolt the opponent. When we're on the play, we don't have a threat, but I think this hand's great, and we have 14 threats in the deck, so we'll keep. We'll lead on turn 1, fetch Shock for a Blood Crypt into a Thoughtseize. Looks like we're up against a mono white deck, and we'll take their Skyclave. Opponent leads on turn 1 Ameria. We top deck a Water Grave. We'll play out our Mire, passing. Opponent plays out a Field Rune. We top deck a Polluter Delta. Demolition Field for the opponent. We top deck another land. We will Shock in our Steam Vents and pass. Another land for us. We will Shock in our Water Grave and pick up our Gigantha. In step, they fire off a Field Rune. We'll pick up a Swamp. Opponent plays out a White Orchid Phantom, taking out our Water Grave, and we have no more basics, sadly. Top deck a Dress Down, play out our Delta, and pass. Opponent attacks in for 2. And they play out a Thraben Inspector, and on an end step, we'll fire off our Push on the Orchid. Find another land, play that out, and pass. In step, they take out our Blood Crypt. They attack in for 1. And out a Ranger Captain of Eos, so in response, we'll Dress Down. Ooh, we top deck a Death Shadow. That's a good draw. Play that out, and play out a tap Steam Vents. And on our end step, they crack a Clue. Yeah, opponent takes out our Water Grave with a Field Rune. At this point, we just don't have any lands left, so we're going to scoop it up and get on the sideboarding. We're going to bring in Stern Scolding, Toxic Deluge, Kolaghan's Command, and a Cast into Fire for Drownlock and 3 Spell Pierce. Game 2, starting hand, actually has threats, so we'll keep. We'll lead on turn 1 Steam Vents into a Ragavan. Opponent leads on Evoking out a Solitude into a Plains. Top deck another land. We'll play our DRC into a Delta. Opponent plays out a Demolition Field. We top deck a Shadow. We'll fetch and Shock and cast out our EI. And we don't need another land, so we'll bend that. We'll put a Unholy Heat in our hand, Cake Man on the bottom, Nethergoyf into exile, fetch Shock, and play out our Nethergoyf. Backing in for 1. Opponent casts a Winds of Abandon on our Nethergoyf, and they run out of Plains. We find a Thoughtseize, great draw, then another land. Yeah, we'll take their One Ring, then fetch Shock, casting out our Shadow, pick up our Gigantha, and attacking for 1. Opponent plays out Demolition Field, taking out our blue source. So we find another land, good draw, fetch Shock, play out our Gigantha, which they reprieve, pretty good draw from them. Then we will attack in for 8. Opponent activates another Demolition Field, and then marches our Death Shadow. Ooh, we top deck our Ragavan, we'll dash that. Back in with the team, exile a Field Rune, and we'll pass them. Opponent plays out an Ameria into an Elishnorn. Another land for us. We will lead on a Toxic Deluge. For X is 1. We're going to need to hit Delirium here to have a chance. We will bin our cast into fire and then cast Unholy Heat on the Elshnorn. Please give us Delirium. And we find an enchantment. Let's go. That was like the perfect sequence. Now we will fetch Shock, going down to 2, dash out our Ragavan, beating the opponent for 4, and finding an Abiding Grace, which we cannot cast. Opponent plays out a Martyr of Sands, revealing a Ranger Captain going up to 5, then playing out their Ranger Captain, playing out a Kami of False Hope. We top deck a Bauble, cast that, Surveil. Yeah, Drown's pretty good here. Bauble the opponent, in a Thraben Inspector. So we'll just cast out our Giganta into our Ragavan, and attack in for 3. Opponent casts out their Thraben. They crack their Clue, passing. Ooh, top deck a Shadow, go to combat, back in for 3, and they sacrifice their Kami. Then we'll play out a Shadow. Opponent plays out a Field, taking out our blue source. We top deck an EI, we'll go to combat and attack in with everything. Opponent does have a Solitude, which we will counter with our Drown Lock. Then a Thoughtseize, and opponent scoops it up. Let's get on to match 3. Game 3, starting hand is a little land light, but we'll take the risk. Opponent leads on turn 1 Plains into a Thraben. We top deck a Drown, we'll play out our Delta and fetch Shock, playing out a turn 1 Ragavan. Opponent plays out a Demolition Field. We top deck a Thoughtseize. We'll fire that off. In response, they cycle an Eagles of the North. Ooh, they have 2 One Rings and a Solitude. I guess we will take a Solitude and pass the opponent. Opponent plays out a Plains into a Skyclave Apparition, taking out our Ragavan. Okay, we do top deck a land. So we'll play out our Scalding Tarn and pass the opponent. Opponent cast out a Ranger Captain Eos, so we're gonna have to fetch Shock here and cast our Dress down. You find another land, and they attack in for 3. Ooh, we top deck a DRC. We will fire off our Nethergoyf, play out our Mire, and cast out DRC. Opponent cracks a Clue, drawing a card, then plays a Kami of the False Hope. Ooh, another land for us. We will play that out and pass the opponent. Opponent cast out another Skyclave. So we'll fire off a Cast into Fire, dealing 1 damage to their Kami and I guess Thraben Inspector, surveilling with our DRC, then a land, then we will fetch Shock, and then we'll fetch Shock again, and fire off a Drown Lock, countering their Skyclave, and we'll bend a land. Ooh, top deck a Shadow. We'll run that out, go to combat, and we'll actually attack in with both here. When it's down to 13, when it sacks their Ranger Captain. So I think in response, we will just kill their Skyclave. Prevailing, we will bend a Bauble. Then we get a 1/1. When it cycles their Eagle, then cast a March, taking out our Death Shadow, and no attacks from them. Top deck a Islet. We will play that, crack it, drawing a card, find another land, go to combat, attack in with our 2 big creatures, and opponent does Chump Block, and we'll pass. Don't cast out a One Ring, drawing a card right away. Another land for us, not great. We'll play out our Delta, pick up our Giganta. Opponent goes to 9, then draws 2 with One Ring. And they fire off a Field Rune, taking out our Water Graves, so we'll float Bloom, pick up our Swamp, and we'll fire off our Dress down now. We'll bend a Thoughtseize, and we top deck another DRC, and they cast out a One Ring, and they draw a card right away. Ooh, Skarn Scolding's great draw. We'll play out our DRC. We have to attack in, sadly. Opponent draws 2 with One Ring, and they cast out a Martyr of Sands, which we will counter, prevailing twice, then a Toxic Deluge, and bend a DRC. Ooh, they have an Abiding Grace, though, into a Field Rune, taking out our blue source. And on their end step, they return a Martyr of Sands to the battlefield. Top deck a Bauble, we'll cast it, surveilling twice, then a land, then another Bauble, and go to combat here, backing in with everything. They block our Goyf and gain 9 life with a Martyr. Sadly, we are going to get on to the next match. We are on the play, and starting hand looks great. We don't turn 1 Shock into a Ragavan. Turn 1 Surveil land for the opponent. We draw another land. We'll attack in for 2. Exiling a Ruby Medallion. Thus, we will cast an EI. Put DRC in hand, land to the bottom, DRC in exile, Shock in our Blood Crypt, and cast out DRC. Opponent plays a land into a Ritual, into a Ral, cast into Manamorphose. They do flip their Ral, which means they can take out both of our creatures. They do not do that. They tick up. Wow. Cast another Manamorphose into a Galvanic Relay, into a Rin's Resolve, exiling Past in Flames and a land, then another Ritual, casting a Past in Flames, and looks like they're going off here. And opponent ends up casting a bazillion spells, and they have us here, so we'll scoop it up and get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 4 Dress Down for an Unlicensed First, 2 Surgical, and a Change the Equation. Game 2, starting hand looks great. We'll keep this. We'll lead on turn 1 DRC. Opponent goes turn 1 Mountain. We will play out a Polluted Delta, fetch Shock, and go turn 2 Licensors, and we'll bend a land. Back in for 1. Opponent plays Mountain into a Pyretic Ritual, into a Ruby Medallion, and a Morphos, another Ritual, cast down a Rin's Resolve, finding a Strike It Rich and a Ring Worry, and they fire off a Glimpse the Impossible, exiling 3 lands, a Reckless Impulse, and nothing else from the opponent, so we'll activate our Hearse, exiling a Glimpse and a Rinse Resolve. Top deck a Heat, we'll play out our Scalding Tarn, fetch Shock, then cast out our Death Shadow, and attack in for 1. We'll cast an Arena of Glory, flashing back Strike It Rich. Step, we'll exile their Reckless Impulse and Metamorphose. Fire off one of the Unholy Heat so we can Surveil. We will keep a Thoughtseize. All our Thoughtseize, fire it off, Surveil. We'll bin a Thoughtseize, and we will take their Ral. Combat, attack in with the team, and from the opponent, we'll exile their Rituals, find a Scalding Tarn, play that Shock, fire off our Unholy Heat. Hopefully we get Delirium here. Not bin a land. Combat, attacking with the team. We're going to cast out a Static Prison, which we will counter, and we'll bin a DRC, which means that we should have lethal here. Yep, opponent scoops it up. Let's get on to game 3. Game 3, starting hand looks great. We'll keep this. Go turn 1 DRC. Land for the opponent. We drop deck an Unholy Heat, Shock in Steam Vents, and play out our Nether Goyf, and attack in for 1. Then step, the opponent surveils again. Opponent shocks in a Sacred Foundry and plays out a Glimpse. Okay, we top deck a Bauble. We will lead on an EI, bin the land, put a Drown in our hand, Heat on the bottom, Ragman into exile, cast out a Bauble. Ooh, Surgical seems really nice here. Yeah, we'll keep another Surgical. Bauble the opponent in a land, play out a Scalding Tarn, and we will fire off our Surgical, taking out their wishes. Keep our Surgical on top. Ooh, we get a wish out of their hand, and we get to take a peek at their deck. Yeah, and look at their list. They have no ways of winning, so they scoop it up. That's so funny. Let's go. All right, let's get on to the next match. We're on the draw, and the starting hand looks reasonable. We're on Arid Mesa for the opponent. We top deck a Goyf. We'll lead on Bauble, look at our top. Seeing a Ragavan, which I don't think we want anymore. We'll fetch Shock and lead on a turn 1 Goyf. And in response, opponent surveils a Subtlety into the yard. I'll dress down, opponent shocks into Steam Vents. Top deck a push, play out our Delta, go to combat, attacking in for 2. And on our Incept, they cast a dress down. That shocks, playing out a which we sadly do have to counter because of dress down. We top deck a land. We will play that out, fetch Shock, and cast out a Death Shadow. Wow, and they do Subtlety this. And we'll bottom this. Go to combat, attack in for 3. Ooh, opponent fetches for a land, and we'll just cycle one of our dress downs. Finding a land. Another dress down for us. We'll shock in our Blood Crypt and pass the opponent. Nothing from the opponent. We'll cycle another dress down. Ooh, we found a DRC. We'll fire that off. In response, they cast a Tune the Narrative, and they fire off a Galvanic Discharge, taking out our DRC, and go for the opponent. Ooh, top deck a Thoughtseize. We'll fire that off, which meets a counter. Except they surveil another Flage into the yard. Opponent goes land Flage, so we will dress down again, finding a Thoughtseize. Ooh, we top deck a Goyf. We'll fire off our Thoughtseize. In a land, we will play out our Goyf, pass into the opponent. Opponent has a 1 ring. Pretty good. They go to combat. We'll Unholy Heat their Flage. They play a land. We will escape our Nether Goyf and pass the opponent. Opponent activates 1 ring, drawing 2. And opponent casts out a Wrath of Skies, which we will Spell Pierce. Tap them low, so they can't cast out a Flage. And of course, they pay for it, destroying both of our Goyfs. Top deck another land. We'll fire off a Bolt at face. And they dress down in response. Think we're going to get them here. Then we'll shock in Steam Vents, cast out our Goyf, and hope they don't have something that can gain them life. Opponent draws 3 in their upkeep and scoops it up. Get on to sideboarding. And we're going to make no changes. Game 2, hand's a little weak, but opponent mold is 6, so we'll actually keep this. Turn 1 Surveil land for the opponent. We top deck another land, not great. We'll fetch Shock and play a DRC. Top deck a dress down. We'll attack in for 1. Fire off a Thoughtseize. Then a dress down. Wow, this is a hand from the opponent. And we'll take their Flage. Play a land passing. No land from the opponent. Huge. Bobble off the top. We will cast it. Surveil. Then a land. Play a Scalding Tarn and attack in for 1. We will bobble ourselves. In a Thoughtseize, which is pretty good. Fetch land for the opponent. We top deck a Thoughtseize. Fire one of them off. And they Galvanic Discharge, which is fine. And we will keep our Shadow on top. Then take a 1 ring. Shock in our Blood Crypt. Fire off another Thoughtseize. And take a Wrath of Skies. Opponent plays out a land. Fetch Shocks. And cast a Flage. I think we have to shock in our Steam Vents here. Play our Shadow. They're going to Subtlety it. We're going to have to dress down and draw into like a Fatal Push. Or a... Yeah, this is fine. We have to dress down, and we might as well thin our deck as much as we can. The only cards that do anything are Unholy Heat and Fatal Push, if I'm not mistaken. So we will fetch Shock out a... Oh, actually awkward. Guess we're going to fetch Shock into Steam Vents and hope we don't get failed or draw our Fatal Push. Okay, wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, opponent has us here, so we have to scoop it up and get on to game 3. We're going to take out a dress down for game 3 and bring in Unlicensed Hearse. Game 3, starting hand is a little sketchy, but we'll keep it. Go turn 1 Ragavan. Hope it doesn't get killed. Turn 1 fetch land for the opponent. We'll attack in with a rag. Ooh, we connect. That's a W. Finding a Celestial Purge, and we'll fire off our EI, hopefully finding a land. Put a Spell Pierce hand, 1 on bottom, land in exile, go fetch shock, and fire off a Thoughtseize. And we'll take their Supreme Verdict. In step, they surveil, keeping a card on top. Opponent casts a Tune the Narrative. Then they play out an island into Soul Guide Lantern, exiling our land. Top took a Goyf, attack in with our rag, exiling a Galvanic Discharge. Play out our DRC into an Expressive Iteration, and we will keep the land on top. That's what we were looking for. Put Thoughtseize into hand, DRC bottom, land in exile, play land, and hold up Spell Pierce. Opponent cycles their Soul Guide Lantern, a Shock into Steam Vents, and upkeep fire off a Purge on our Ragman, which we will Spell Pierce. Surveil a land to the yard. Still in our upkeep, we will fetch shock in a land, finding a dress down, fire off a Thoughtseize, then another land, take the One Ring, fire off our Goyf, go to combat, attacking with the team, exile a Discharge. Yeah, an opponent fetches out of planes, top decking a Wrath of Skies, and they get to wipe our board here. Okay, we top deck a Goyf. We will try and dash out our Ragaman. Yep, that meets a counter spell. That's fine. Play out our Goyf. Oh my goodness, they top deck a One Ring. Opponent is drawing like an absolute beast. And they play out a Surveil land, keeping the card on top. Not a good look for us. Draw a land. We will shock it in, cast out our Goyf, pass the opponent. Opponent cast out a Flage, putting us down to 3. And they draw 2 with the One Ring. We'll land passing. Land for us. Go to combat. Attack in. Fire off a Bullet Face. They draw a card. Please don't have anything because this is Xaxes. All right, they're down to 8. And they scoop it up. Wow. I mean, I think opponent drew really well to get out of that one, but we are just drawing better, I guess. So let's get on to the next match. We are on the play, and I already did mulligan sadly, but this hand looks great, so we will keep it, putting back a land. We'll lead on turn 1 Steam Vents into a Ragavan. Plays turn 1 Bobble into a Goyf. Ooh, we top took a Bolt. Great draw. We will bolt their Goyf. Go to combat. Attack in for 2. Exiling a Shieldred, and then we will play out our Bloodstained Mire passing. Plays out an Urborg into another Goyf. Into another Goyf. Ooh, we top took a Thoughtseize. We will go to combat and attack the opponent. And they do block here, so we will fire off a Dress Down, making the Goyf an 0-1, drawing into an iteration, and we will take out their Goyf. And we will sacrifice our treasure and fire off a Thoughtseize. And we will take their Dothi. Opponent plays out an Urza Saga into a Spell Bomb. Ooh, another Ragavan for us. We will fetch, cast out an iteration, put a Shadow into hand, Goyf on the bottom, Delta into exile, play out our Delta, fetch shock, and play out our Shadow. And in step, they do fire off their Spell Bomb. Opponent plays out a Castle Lockthane. We top deck a Fiery Islet. We will cast another EI, put Spell Pierce into hand, Watergrave on the bottom, Thoughtseize into exile, play out our Islet, fire off a Thoughtseize. And in response, they cast out a Bowmasters, shooting our Ragavan. And they cast a Not Dead After All on the Goyf. So we'll take their Fel the Profane and then cast out a Ragavan. Opponent makes a Construct. And then off their Saga, they pick up a Shadow Spear. And then they play out a Pithy Needle, naming Psychic Frog, which we do not have in the deck. Another EI for us. We're so good at this game. We'll fire one of them off. And we see 2 Drowns and a Bobble. So we'll put Drown into hand, Bobble on bottom, Drown into exile. And we will go to combat, attacking in with our Shadow here, which they chump block with their army. And we will fire off our Drown, killing their Goyf. And plays out a tap land, then escapes a Goyf from the yard. And they attack in for 3. We'll take the damage. Top deck a DRC, pretty good one. We'll go to combat, attack in with our Shadow, which they chump block with their Bowmasters. And we'll play out a DRC. Opponent equips Shadow Spear to their Goyf. And they attack in with the Goyf, so we will drown this. And we will surveil a land into the yard. And then they equip Shadow Spear to their Construct. Wow, we find a Dress Down, pretty good. So we will go to combat, attack in with the team. And they block our Ragavan, so we will fire off a Dress Down, spin a land, draw another land, unfortunate. Fade off Ragavans, then we'll play out our land and pass. Opponent cast out a Dothi and equips it with Shadow Spear. I don't understand this play, but we'll see what happens. We top deck a Goyf and we'll just go to combat, attack in, and opponent scoops up. Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 3 Spell Pierce, Lightning Bolt, and 2 Drown Locks for Molten Collapse, Terminate, Kolaghan's Command, Unlicensed Hearse, and 2 Alpine Moon. Game 2, starting hand looks great. Opponent goes turn 1 Swamp into an Evoked Out Grief. They take our EI and then Not Dead After All, and then take our Unholy Heat, and then cast out a Bobble. We top deck a Bloodstained Mire. We will fetch shock, go turn 1 DRC, cast out a Bobble. We'll put a Death Shadow in the yard, which makes our DRC Delirious, cast out another Bauble, gain an Alpine Moon, which we will also bin. Then upkeep, we'll look at their top card, see another Not Dead After All, or Taxon for 4. We draw an Unholy Heat off of our Bauble, good draw, into another land, go to combat, Taxon for 3, then play out a fetch land, passing, or Taxon for 4, we'll take it. In step, we'll look at our top card, and in response, they flash into Bowmasters, and they shoot us for 1. See a Bauble on top, that's not a good draw, so we will Unholy Heat their Grief, fetch before we Surveil. Seeing a Molten Collapse, which I don't think is good enough, so we'll bottom that. Okay, we draw a Dress Down into an EI, so we will cast out our EI, then a land. Okay, these are some good ones. We will put Ragavan into the hand, Dress Down bottom, Unholy Heat into exile, Shockin' our Blood Crypt, and Unholy Heat their Orc Army, Surveil land into the yard, then go to combat, attack in for 3. I'm gonna place land, attacks in for 1. Okay, we top deck another DRC. We will dash out our Ragavan, go to combat, attacking with the team. Ooh, they have another Bowmasters. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's gonna be good enough to take us out, sadly. Yeah, sadly it is, so we're gonna have to scoop it up and get on to game 3. Game 3 starting hand is obscenely good, so we'll keep this. We'll lead off on a Bauble, looking at their top card. Seeing a Bogart Trawler, then we will fire off another Bauble, looking at our top card. Groundlock, I think that is a fine card, so we'll keep it on top. Back in our Water Grave, and Thoughtseize the opponent. Yeah, and we will take their turn 1 Grief here. 2 good draws. Bolts in their Bogart Trawler land into a Thoughtseize, taking our Ragavan. Another Dress Down, we'll play at our Goyf into a land. Tap land for the opponent into a Bauble. They look at our top card, and then push our Goyf. In step, we will fetch out a land. Okay, we top deck an Unlicensed Hearse. Pretty decent draw. I'm gonna place out a land into a Goyf and a Bowmasters. We top deck a land. We'll play it out and pass the opponent. We're gonna Taxon with the team. We will drown and lock their Orcish Bowmasters, which they Not Dead After All. And when it tries to come back, we will activate our Hearse, getting rid of their Bowmasters and an instant. So we end up only taking 3. And they pass. End step, we will fetch out a land. Ooh, okay, another Drown's not bad. We will cast out a Goyf from the yard. Our opponent casts out a Bogart Trawler, exiling our graveyard. And then attacking in, so we will exile their yard, and we'll take 1. Ooh, we top deck a Shadow, great draw, play that out. All right, fires off a Thoughtseize, that's fine. They take our Drown, leaving us with 2 Dress Downs, and in their main phase, we will fire off a Dress Down. Find an EI, huge draw. Yeah, we find a land, we will play that out, animate our Unlicensed Hearse, green with our Goyf, and attacking in with our 2 big creatures. Our opponent double blocks, and they Not Dead After All their Bogart Trawler. Yep, and then they Flare of Malice, making us sacrifice our Unlicensed Hearse, while also exiling our yard. So we will cast out an EI, put our DRC into hand, bottom a Water Grave, and then pick up a DRC, and then cast out our DRC. We don't cast out a Goyf, Taxon with a Trawler, we will take the damage. Find another land, we'll go to combat, attack in with our Shadow and Goyf, and they chump block with their Goyf. Then we will play out another DRC into a land, or Taxon with their 4/4, which we are fine going down to 1 here. And we top deck another Goyf, so we'll go to combat, just attack in with our Shadow, and they do chump block, and I just realized I should have blocked this, oops. We'll cast out our Nether Goyf and pass. They draw a card with their Cast Lockthwain. We'll place out an Urza Saga into a Bowmasters, so we'll Dress Down. We'll bottom a Ragavan, and I think we'll also bin an Alpine Moon, find another Shadow, and they attack in with their Harbinger. We'll chump block with a Goyf. We made this game way more difficult than it needed to be. We will draw a Thoughtseize, go to combat, send in with everything, and that should be exactly lethal. And we did take the game, even though I made it way longer than it needed to be, and we end up going 4-1. Pretty nice record. So yeah, after playing this list, I think that Dress Down is probably in the best position it's been in a long time, outside of like when Urza Saga was super powerful. We didn't play against any Nadu decks, but this was extremely powerful against opposing Nether Goyfs. Just a good cycling card, obviously. Great synergy with Shadow in the deck. And I do think that having counter spells currently is like in a great position. A lot of people are trying to cast some powerful effect, and like having Drown Locks or Spell Pierce for that. I will also say I think this might be the best Nether Goyf deck that I've played with. I almost like don't even really want Ragavans in this list. I'd want to max out on the Nether Goyfs. That was like extremely impressive in this deck. Consistently a 5, 6, 6, 7. So this might be the best Nether Goyf I've seen. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.